Hello and welcome back to another Gunpla review. Today we're taking another look at the high-grade, the Origin, Zaku 2 half cannon. Now I did say another look, and that's because I already reviewed this, but I'm not happy with that video anymore, so I wanted to take another look. So let's start off, as always, by taking a look at the articulation. Alright, starting out, the Origin Zaku articulation. The eye is movable. You can see the little switch underneath there. I would move it, but honestly it doesn't really matter. You know the kind of range it gets. There's a ball joint at the top and at the bottom, and there's also a hinge in the middle of the neck, though you don't really get much use out of it. The chest is actually interesting in that it has sort of a folding hinge thing. It doesn't do a lot, honestly, and with this chest design, it doesn't really do anything even more. Thankfully, the shoulders pick up the slack, having a forward-facing polycap, which means you can get the arm all the way across the chest. Aside from that, it's in a ball joint, so plenty of range there. And there's also a hinge here in the shoulders, and I'll go over the shoulder ball joint swivel hinge for the shield, so plenty of range there. And this is on two hinges as well, so it gets completely out of the way, and you can get the arm up 90 degrees without even turning it. As usual, there's a rotation in the upper arm, a double jointed elbow, which is really, really nice, and as always, hands are on a ball joint. Though I will say the ball joints, at least on mine, pretty tight. The chest has a forward-facing ball joint at the top and then another ball joint at the waist, so you get pretty good range considering it's a fairly bulky kit. Though do keep in mind that the midsection in there is free-floating, so it may come out and then get stuck and you have to pull the chest apart. It's not a huge deal, don't worry too much about it. Front skirts are separated on the runner. Get out of the way perfectly fine. The side skirts are on ball joints, which means they get out of the way. Basically, full splits-ish. The hips are on a forward shifting piece, though they do shift together, not separately. And universal joints for the actual hip itself, which means you get, get this out of the way, pretty decently high up kick, and like I said, pretty much all the way out. Thigh swivel, thankfully not obstructed by anything. Let's get that back in. Really, really good knees. The Origin Zaku actually gets well above 90 degree bend and separates out the knee joint. And the hips on mine are a little bit loose for some reason. It's not a big deal. The ankles are, well, there's not a lot going on for the actual ankle joint itself. It's just a hinge and a ball joint. But then the foot is actually articulated so that it actually moves slightly. The front and the back are separate pieces, and when the central piece here shifts up, it pulls the back up with it. So you get a very slight bit of animation there, which is subtle, but I do appreciate it. Now the ankle doesn't get a crazy tilt, unfortunately. You don't really get very much at all. And it doesn't shift down or anything, so that's about as far as you get. Same to the back, you don't really get very much. Thankfully you do get a lot to the front, so you can get decent poses out of it, though sometimes it can be a little bit of a struggle. Now moving on to the backpack, which is the half cannon's exclusive stuff, you get a hinge at this point and a hinge at this point, and the handles for the missile launchers are actually articulated as well, meaning that you can actually do pretty much whatever pose you want with them, I mean within reason. And the cannon that its namesake comes from is on a hinge on the back, and I mean it doesn't get super far. It's what, like 30 degrees of movement, but still it's there. So I mean, it's an Origin Zaku. It has really good articulation. There's not really much to say there. Now, moving on to accessories, and let's start, as always, with the sticker sheet. These Origin kits come with a lot of warning and other emblems, and the half cannon comes with a lot of red stripes. I painted mine because, no, though I did leave off the stripes on the knee here and on the foot, because I kind of feel it's a little excessive. Also, the stripe on the shield is my own. I obviously went with the standard just pink eye, but you do get a gradient one, which honestly I don't think looks very good, but it is an option. Now, moving on to the accessories proper, let's get it out of the way. Most of them are already on it. The grenade launchers, obviously holding hands, and the main cannon. But you also get a heat hawk, which is basically a leftover on the runner, but hey, you get a heat hawk. Both the collapsed version with the peg, so that it can be stored on the hip, as well as the extended version with, well, no peg. Obviously, I painted the silver on the blade because I wanted to, but they are just single pieces of plastic. Now, you also get the Gatling, which just two pieces of plastic, though the end of the barrel are a separate piece, so no rotation. This is a rubberized plastic for the belt, and you have to remove this cannon in order to actually have it be belt fed. So you either get the 3 cannons or the minigun and only the left cannon, which is not a big deal, and honestly you do get a leftover part from the standard Zaku that you can use on this arm, so it's completely fine. And finally, you get the left splayed hand, which is standard for a Zaku, but you also get a right splayed hand, and I'm pretty sure this is the only Origin Zaku to have one, so if you want one for another kit, you don't really have much of a choice. That said, it does actually come on a separate runner, and as you can see, it's very, very slightly lighter gray, and also a different finish, which is probably more annoying, honestly. But it is there, and honestly, I think a top coat would probably fix that without having to repaint it, so not too big a deal. Now on to additional parts, which mostly just means leftovers, but we will get one out of the way. The action base adapter. Basically, if you want this on a stand, this is what they expect you to use. However, the peg here on the butt, 3mm, so you can just use that with any 3mm stand. You don't have to worry about this. Next up, we have the commander head, which is the exact same as the regular head, except for the hole for the commander antenna, which does have a little safety flag on it, but yeah, super easy to clean up, not a big deal. You also get tan feet tops if you don't want to go with this more FZ style foot. This is just a leftover from the original standard Zaku 2, so speaking of leftovers from the original Zaku 2, you do get some spare thruster bells if you want to do something with those, and a trigger finger, though you don't get the back hand for it. It doesn't really matter since they all use the same pieces anyway, so you can just swap one out. I was talking about that extra part that you can put on the arm, and that is these machine gun Vulcans. They're not intended to be used with this kit, but if you're going to be using the Gatling anyway, might as well put this on the arm to give it a little bit more firepower. Also, you do get these alternate chest pieces, which don't have the whatever they are on the chest. It's just a standard Zaku. And speaking of standard Zaku, you do actually get the standard Zaku chest piece and the little bit that goes over the power cables, since the alternate chest does have a different bottom and isn't compatible. I'm just gonna put that on there now so I don't lose it. Came off the runner, so I would have left it on if not for that. And finally, here's a upside down quick look at the polycaps that are left over, and yeah, not a lot, though the ones that are left over do seem decently useful, these ball joints especially. And now moving on to a quick size comparison, and it's, you know, the standard size for a Zaku. I believe the origin proportions are slightly different to the regular Universal Century, but they're about the same height. You know, it's standard height for a high grade, though a little bit bulkier just because of the Zaku's design. So to wrap this review up, yes, I can recommend the Zaku half cannon. Honestly, I kind of think this is one of the better Origin Zakus. I mean, it's basically the same as the rest of them, but the differences it does have, namely the backpack, really, I think, improve the overall experience. It's a lot of fun to pose this thing, and I mean, I'm just a sucker for tan, so obviously I'm going to like it, but it's like 95% a standard Origin Zaku, and then the parts that are different bring it into its own. The Origin kits are a bit more expensive than the average high grade, but that's because they have almost real grade separation. And these Zakus are a lot of fun to put together, so I would definitely recommend this one. Anyway, that's all for this review. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for future reviews. Hit the bell, apparently that's important. And feel free to watch my backlog. And as always, until next time, happy building.